Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Bit of a free-form video today, totally off the cuff, because I was just with my 2-year-old son. Very sweet at this age. But 2-year-olds are starting to understand the world. And what's so interesting about having a family is it makes so much of this stuff to do with masculine and spiritual initiation so much more true. I was saying to my wife just the other day, everything you learn about women in that world, you sometimes question in the day-to-day life, because women are always in their masculine frame in the modern world. They're in jobs and so on, and they're trained to be to develop the masculine side. I've said before, they often act like Andrew Tate, despite supposedly hating him. Listen to the feminist rhetoric. I am a strong, independent woman, female empowerment. I'm going to go and take on the men. It's very Tatey energy in many ways. It's about display and braggadociousness. Anyway, the reason I was bringing this up with her is because when a woman is pregnant, you really see her feminine side. She is fully in her feminine. It's beautiful in a way, challenging in other ways, because they really aren't in their thinking mind, their logical mind, which is more masculine by nature. They're completely in the more emotional body, so they're looking for cues in the male to feel safe. So if any of you are, planning on having children or are dealing with a pregnant woman, it's worth remembering this. She wants to subconsciously know that you're providing safety to her. And that simply means being calm, relaxed, logical, having a plan, and taking the family forward, leading from the front so she doesn't feel she has to. Again, you can see the tragedy of women left alone to give birth to children in terms of them not feeling safe. And I personally believe that that energy will pass on to the child. That's our role as men. In fact, even when it comes to birth, that's even more intensified, keeping your wife calm as you go into the process of birth, and keeping everything chilled and relaxed, and again, her knowing that you're there and you're stable and you're responsible. Anyway, the reason I'm saying all of this is, these are the lessons that you learn in the masculine initiation stuff, in the spiritual initiation stuff from a masculine standpoint. But you also learn these same lessons with children. So one of the things that you will learn in a lot of masculine initiation literature is the idea that the boy needs to move into the world of the father. And that really begins around his teens. Obviously, it's not going to happen with a 2-year-old. It'd be a bit silly. They very much need the world of the mother then. And I'm obviously absolutely fine with that. I totally understand my son will always go to his mum at this age. It's completely normal. As he grows, and I'm sure we've all seen this, whether it's our own children or family members or whatever else, you do see that the young male, does start to take more and more of an interest in the father and his world as he gets older. And mum all of a sudden isn't that interesting and important anymore. I mean, she's still fundamentally important, but he wants to move into the world of the father. He wants to know what dad's doing. And that's where the stuff comes at school. My dad's harder than your dad. My dad's better than your dad. When I went to school in Leicester, so it was my dad played for Leicester City was the thing the kids would say. I remember one kid saying, my dad's faster than Linford Christie. For any international viewers, that's a sprinter. He was a black British sprinter who was particularly good. And I remember being about, 7, thinking maybe he is. Like, you just don't know when you're that age. Anyway, the point I'm making is that is preceding that natural growth towards the world of men that will come really when boys hit their teens. And in the traditional world, the tribal world to this day, you will find the initiation ceremonies occur when boys enter their teens. And if you're interested in this, Robert Moore is very good. He's written a lot on it, and he emphasizes that the boy almost has to be somewhat broken by leaving the world of the mother and almost scared to go into the world of men, because he needs the fear to overcome the fear, and that's what makes him a man, if you will. Now, in this day and age, you'd never get away with something like that. It would be seen as cruel, but of course on the flip side, it leads to men having all the issues they have today, where they can't find themselves, they don't know who they are, they can't be responsible. So I think the traditional world may have been one step ahead of us there when it came to the wisdom in the formation of men. But the point I'm getting at here is one thing I've noticed with my son at this age is his mother, understandably, is, and this is the way mothers are and always should be, is always the point of safety. She's the unconditional love that he goes to when he falls over. I mean, he will go to me, but, he really wants mummy if he's really upset. And he wants a cuddle and everything to feel better. Now, I've noticed as he's growing up and becoming more conscious of the world, that I will respond to him slightly differently, but most importantly, he will actually follow my lead sometimes now. So I can't remember what happened the other day, but he got upset over some minor thing. And look, 2-year-olds do that, that's normal. And I will give him a cuddle, of course I will, he's only 2. But I'll give him a cuddle and I will say something along the lines of, well, we're big boys now, we don't need to cry, over whatever it is, the pen that, fell down. And I will see he'll actually quite quickly turn around with me with a different energy. And he's fine. But when he sees his mum and his mum responds to him with that motherly love, he'll almost get upset again. And another thing I've noticed is he'll almost play to his mother's emotions. So he'll almost make himself upset by his mother's sympathy, which will extend it because he almost relaxes into, the emotional field, if you will. Now, again, nothing I'm saying here is of course saying that if he is in any genuine distress, that wouldn't be met. Of course it would. What I'm saying is there is something very, very true to how the young nervous system, the young soul, responds to the masculine and feminine energy. And you can probably see where I'm going with this. At 2, it doesn't matter so much. But at 22, it does. And I think we know this has happened in the Western world. A lot of men, no fault of their own, although we have to be careful of apportioning blame and saying I'm the victim, because that can make it worse. But a lot of men have never been introduced into the world of men. They never had that journey, and their fathers weren't ever either. So we have this problem of constantly riffing off the relationship with the female soul, the female instinct to love and nurture. And as I say, that's a wonderful thing. But in the traditional world, we had to move on from that. We had to grow beyond it. And many men, and I've seen this many times in the coaching work I've done, will have a resentment to their mother, and they won't know why, because their mother's lovely. But the initiation literature is very clear. It's that we crave, as males, the introduction into the world of men. And when the mother is there all the time, whether it's literally in the home or the university system, which is feminized, or the society, which is increasingly gynocentric, we just feel like we're being stuck in some claustrophobic room of just feminine energy. And on a soul level, it really stings. You just want to get away from it. I can't bear it anymore. And that's, again, of course, where the excessive, manosphere stuff comes in. It's really an uninitiated response to excess femininity. There's no elders there. It's all edgy older brother energy. Sneeko, Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines, all these, red-pilled bros. And what are they actually promoting to men? It's an adolescent view of what it is to be a man. It's tough guys, it's muscles, it's steroids, it's having all the women, it's hedonism, it's me. And they do adopt sometimes religions and so on, but they don't really live by them. They're not really elders in that sense because they haven't been matured themselves. In a sense, it's not really their fault either. But that's not to say they aren't without responsibility. The point I'm getting to here is this is endemic across the Western world and almost inescapable. So we have to become conscious of how these things work in our lives. It's not to say that even as a man, you will never require some deep empathy in your life. I did when I was young. I had a really horrible time growing up, as many of us had. I'm not trying to be diddums. But there was a time where I actually needed someone to put their arm around me and say, like, you actually, you know what, you matter, and what happened to you was really wrong. And I really needed it. And once I felt that, and I got it from a few people, I was all right. I was genuinely all right. And then I realized after that, I can't do any more of that because it's woe is me now, and it's harming me. And a lot of men stay there. I'm the victim and so on. And one thing I can't stand about this men's rights stuff is it takes the frame of liberal feminism. Men are the victim, and it's not to say that men aren't the victim, because they are at times, especially in divorce courts and when it comes to divorces and children living with them and so on. It's terrible, I get that, but they take on the spiritual frame of the feminine approach, and it's so damaging for men. Anyway, that's a side issue. The point I'm getting to here is, yeah, we might need that deep sense of trust and support at some times if we've been really, really badly beaten up, literally and metaphorically. But we have to come out of that, and modernity does not give us a path out of it. I personally, I had to basically find my own way. I was lucky to find some helpful people, but almost became obsessed with the spiritual journey towards God and understanding traditional dynamics, and just years of studying and trying things. And if I'm really honest, the spiritual figures that could help me were very few and far in between. No one in the real world, quote unquote, most of them online, most of them reading books, most of them reading the saints and passing what I could between tradition and the innate spiritual wisdom that was amassing inside of me. And why I'm saying all of this is almost what we have to do in this day and age, because there's no one to guide us. Now, you might be really lucky and have that priest or have a father like that, and they do exist. They're just rare, and most of us don't. And why I'm laying this out in a video is so we become aware of what's around us. Awareness is always the key. It's 50%, if not more, of the battle, because once we're aware of what drags us further in to, if you like, that spiritually feminine energy. I think it might have been Robert Moore or Robert Bly who wrote quite beautifully and accurately, the boy who hasn't been initiated by the father will stay close to the mother, and he will read the world through the emotional prism of the mother's reactions to the world. Now, I certainly had that because my parents divorced when I was young, and it's really common. And normally fathers aren't as engaged with their sons these days. And what Moore meant, or Bly meant, I can't remember exactly who said it, is we read what affects mum. And if mum gets upset by something, we get upset by something. It's especially damaging when boys are teenagers, this. And then you start to see it as your duty to protect mum. So you start to read her emotional feminine instincts and take on those in order for you to deal with whatever the dangers are coming from the external, So that is a way in which we almost get locked into a more of a feminine, sensitive approach to life, which I certainly did. Sensitive socks me. And I've had to work through that and find a masculine path out of it. And I'm always going to be a sensitive soul. It's the way I am. But there is a masculine path of that, which I've explored many times, especially in the Substack community, where we have the paid group. That's the shaman energy, really, in a masculine frame. If you're deeply sensitive, if you feel a deep connection with other people and art and beauty and the world, and you feel things very deeply, that's not classically warrior masculine, which is very popular in the West, and rightly so. I'm not trying to dismiss that. The warrior is an incredible thing, and like I've always said, I always need to orient myself around warriors because they really heal me, because I'm very much lover, king oriented, and if I'm left alone with those, I will get too soppy-doppy. So I've always needed, the boxing teachers, the MMA teachers, hardline people who say suck it up and crack on. I really need those because they drag me out of the hell of too much excess feminine energy. And with that blend, then I can understand my own path in the masculine world, which for me is, of course, I'm very interested in, initiation, tradition, the journey of the soul. And that's where you do get some of the great masculine figures within that world, the saints, the mystics, and so on, the shamans. Even there's a kingly element to that, the person who loves, his fellow people, who really genuinely cares for them on the soul level. You can argue Jordan Peterson had a bit of that, and that's why he was so popular. Genuine soulful connection with the plight of Western man, which many Western men found deeply touching and became deeply loyal to Peterson for that reason. I think Peterson went off the deep end a bit in more latter years, but in principle that's why people were tied to him. But the general point I'm making here is becoming aware of those masculine and feminine influences, not to say, oh, feminine bad, but just to become aware of it, aware of what it does, how it acts. It's all right to interact with it. A bit of empathy is okay, but you're a man, you've got a masculine soul, and you need the journey of male spirituality to become what you are, and without that, we will either become the soppy-doppy classic liberal, or on the flip side, it's very easy to fall into sort of tatism, which is basically just another way into hedonism, materialism, self-centered living and the rest of it. There is something more for us out there, friends, and it is in the depths of our tradition, and we can see it all around us once we start to find the cues and the clues. As always, if you'd like any help with this sort of thing, you can reach out to me. I do coaching on it. Just go to the links below. On top of that, do join the Substack community if you want to connect with me in the group, £5 a month. Other than that, do subscribe to this channel if you're new. And do enjoy the rest of your day, friends. Do take care.